If you've ever made an insurance claim, you'll know it can be like getting blood from a stone. In this story, we speak to Craig Tor to find out how he got his insurance payout after his insurance company said they were not willing to settle the claim. Hello, Craig. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Ken. Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
Now, you had a very difficult situation. You had a break in at your property. And having paid insurance for many decades, your property was protected. You had an electric fence. Your actual housekeeper was on site. The fact that you and your wife and your family were out, the insurance company decided not to pay out. But I understand that Chadwick's insurance stepped in and helped settle the claim for you. Can you take us back to the start of the story and what actually happened when you first approached your insurance company?
Yeah, so we were away for a long weekend and we left our domestic worker looking after the house. Her room is attached to the house. And what happened is that the alarm wasn't set because obviously she was in the house. And the burglars broke through the front gate. So they literally bypassed the electric fence because they actually kicked the front gate in, and then they broke into the house. They came in through a door that secured the house. So they basically broke that door down as well and took numerous personal effects. It was mainly electronics, jewelry, that sort of thing. And the insurers were not willing to pay the claim initially because on the grounds that the house was unattended and the alarm was off. And that's obviously where we got Chadwicks involved, and they literally sorted out the claim for us.
You've been paying insurance for well over a decade. You pay your policy on time. You're basically what would be considered a trouble-free client. What reasons did the insurance company give you for denying your claim initially? And how did you actually react to their decision?
You can imagine it was a large claim, so we were pretty devastated at first. It was a horrible thing to have a claim denied or payment denied, and the Chadwicks basically went back to the insurer and said, "But hang on, the basis on which you're denying this claim is actually untrue. You haven't done your homework. Essentially, the domestic worker, her accommodation is part of the house. It wasn't in a separate building as they had purported. With it being part of the house, not a separate building, that was the sort of basis on which Chadwick's essentially ensured that the insurers paid out to us.
So you've just got off the insurance company. They've told you a flat no, we are not paying out. The stress levels must have been massively high because you're like, for years you've been paying these insurance levies, and all of a sudden, what should be a straightforward claim is denied. When you got in touch with Chadwicks, what was the difference between their response and your insurer, who you'd been putting faith in for many years?
The feeling you always get is that Chadwick's are on your side. In other words, Chadwick's are going to do whatever they can do to ensure that the claim gets paid, obviously within the confines of the law and the policy schedule. But it's an issue of fairness and it's an issue of trust. I think that's what we've always enjoyed about them. They've always acted in our best interest, but with fairness. So that's the comfort that we always get, is if a claim should be paid, we feel very confident that Chadwicks will ensure that it is paid.
Now, many people, when it comes to buying insurance, they simply go to a website. They don't get to actually speak to anybody. They put in their credit card details and they go away with some sense that they're insured. If that had been the case with you and you hadn't been dealing with Chadwicks, what would you have done in this situation?
Yeah, I don't think there would have been that much we could have done. We could have ultimately taken it to the ombudsman, but I think it's a lot more difficult when you don't have an intermediary looking after your best interests, and you don't necessarily, from what we've seen, save anything on premiums either, because these direct insurers tend to spend a lot more on marketing their products because they don't have a middleman or intermediary to pay necessarily. They just spend on television advertising and so forth. So yeah, we just feel a lot more comfortable knowing that we've got an intermediary, Chadwicks, ensuring that we have the correct insurance, the most appropriate cover in place, and that they're acting in our best interests, that we are their client. And I think that's a very different relationship from when you have a direct contract with an insurer.
Now, I've dealt with insurance brokers in the past. I currently have one at the moment, and they send you the letter to pay the money. You pay the money, and you sometimes wonder what you actually get for the money that you've spent. Now that you've been through this experience, how has it affected your views on the importance of having a reliable insurance broker like Chadwick's Insurance?
Look, I think it's imperative simply because there's a lot of information that we get from them in terms of education around your policy, how it works. So there's a lot of value from that perspective. And then I think the big issue is the service. Whenever we have a question or a claim, the service has been absolutely impeccable. If you send an email, we get responses almost immediately. I would say within an hour. I've never really questioned them on what their turnaround time is, but it always seems to be like within minutes essentially. And yeah, there's just a massive level of care when you phone them. You don't ever feel like you're bothering anyone. It's just, you just feel like there's a huge amount of care there.
So financial institution, banks, insurance companies, you tend to feel that when you're dealing with them, that you're just a number. But what you're sharing with me from your experience with Chadwick's Insurance, you're not just a client, but they actually value the relationship they have with you.
Yeah, and that is exactly it. It's a relationship that's built on trust and efficiency and turnaround time. I keep coming back to the word trust. If we ever think we have a legitimate claim, for example, should we have a situation like that, and the people at Chadwicks have to say to us, listen, unfortunately, your claim is not legitimate or a valid claim. I would trust their answer. I wouldn't second guess them. And I think that comes with years and years of them demonstrating the integrity and the trust that they have demonstrated over the years.
Now, when it comes to actually insuring the contents of our property, our cars and stuff like that, it's very hard to work out what the value is. We look at a video camera, we think it cost a couple of $1,000 because that's what we spent 10 years ago. Now it could be worth a couple of $100. How has Chadwick's helped you in setting the right insurance level so that when you do make a claim, you actually get the money that you deserve?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you call the person an assessor, but they did send someone around to our house to go through and value the replacement cost of every single item in the house. So that was quite an interesting exercise, because when you look at your possessions, you don't think about the cost of a teaspoon and a pair of underwear, for example. And when all of that is added up, it comes to a significantly higher amount than one would expect. And as that's important to have that valuation correct, otherwise you would only receive a proportional payout should you have a claim. So that's an exercise that they've run for us in our home. And then when it comes to the business assurance, obviously they insure all the laptops in our offices. So they constantly keep a record of every time we have a change or an upgrade or a new laptop added as our business grows. Obviously, they ensure that new laptop is put on cover, put on risk.
Now, you've been with Chadwick's now, a customer of theirs for over 20 years. I would imagine that this is not the first claim you've made. Looking back over that 20-year period, what has been their response time and what have they been like to deal with, and what's kept you keep going back to Chadwick's for the past 20 years?
So I guess I guess I've said it a few times, but the one sort of moment that stood out for me was we were on a family holiday many years ago. I think it was about 2006, 18 years ago. And I rolled our family vehicle that we were towing a trailer. We were on a dirt road. And the very first call I made was to Tim, the founder of Chadwicks. And yeah, it was just amazing, right down to the sort of calmness and comfort that he gave me. We were in the middle of nowhere. We just rolled our vehicle. I had 3 young kids in the car. It was an incredibly stressful event. And it was probably at that moment, I was like, okay, this is the type of business that we want to work with. That was probably fairly early on in our relationship. That would probably been a couple of years into our relationship. Yeah, and we've had, as one can imagine, numerous claims from cat knocking a glass of water onto a laptop to cameras being damaged in personal capacity to drones flying into solid objects and breaking. And there's never, ever an issue. It's literally an email or a phone call and literally an immediate response with what we need to do, how we need to do it, just absolute efficiency. We never actually worry about our possessions simply because we know that things are taken care of. So it's a great feeling. It's just a very relaxing feeling when you've got possessions that are at risk, like boats and spear guns and fishing rods and surfboards. And if you're active, you just tend to claim more because you're using more stuff and you're using stuff in a risky environment. So it becomes absolutely critical that you can trust the organization that you're dealing with.
Now, there are going to be people watching this interview who are looking for an insurance broker. Based on your experience, where you nearly lost your claim, I mean, the actual insurance company said they weren't going to pay out, but Chadwick's Insurance stepped in, got you a payout. Why do you think people need to have Chadwick's Insurance as their broker?
I think it just boils down to them having your best interests at heart. I think the sense that I get with Chadwicks is that they will look for a way to get the claim paid, where your insurer, typically one gets the sense that they're looking for a way to not pay the claim. So almost like the default answer is, sorry, we're not paying, and you've got to jump through a whole lot of hoops, where Chadwicks will act in your interest and they'll ask a number more questions to try and facilitate the payment of the claim rather than the denial of the claim. So that's quite a big issue in our minds. We just feel confident and comfortable to be very open and honest with them. So it's a great place to be rather than being the person dealing with a direct insurer. You almost, I would imagine, get the feeling that you're being accused of not doing something right, for example. So that's the difference.
Well, Craig Tor, thank you so much for joining us. It's been interesting hearing your insights into getting your insurance payout. And thankfully, Chadwick's Insurance were able to be there to help you. Craig, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ken. It's been a great pleasure. Much appreciated.